to order, would you please stand and salute the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, nice to see you. I thought where the minutes were. Always. That's not, yes.
Oh, yes.
I noticed that
Sorry.
today, I almost emailed you, but then I'm like, no, I'm not gonna like Justin.
Yeah, that's my fault, definitely. You're behind you.
But 24, April of 24.
What I do is I go back to see how I worded it last
Yeah.
year, so I copied it and didn't
Yeah,
fix it.
then didn't fix it. I do
Yeah,
that too,
that's
because
it.
I copy stuff all the time and just
Yeah,
make a copy of my minutes and then I go in and edit them.
just number 7,
That's like,
Ken, I screwed up the year. Apologize.
The minute.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes of August 21st, 2024. I thought they looked good.
Second.
So there's a motion by Chris, second by Kent to approve the minutes. August 21st, all those in favor? Here. It is.
Gonna sit, but then Connor shut up. So now I gotta go to the podium.
Don't stand in my.
I wasn't having anybody to my back. Evening. We'll start with, 2 days ago on Monday afternoon, crews from Monmouth went to Winthrop, thought Connor saw the smoke column across the pond. Yeah, terrible fire, fully involved by the time we got there, and fortunately, nobody got injured. That got out, good. Stubborn fire, we were there for over 3 hours. It was nice to come back and have pizzas served by a shop who was closed for the day for the holiday, but they opened up their kitchen and Chuck and Shannon cooked us 8 large pizzas and got our whole crew. We had about 19 firefighters, so very nice to see a community support like that. ISO update, so I did get contacted by the individual finally. There was one form missing. He was reviewing our other forms, so they tend to take a little while, I think, to do this process. So he's in the process of reviewing our forms, which basically lay out all our equipment capabilities and off end and whatnot. So still standby, but it was good to hear from him finally. So as soon as I get more word, I'll let you guys know. Last Thursday, we finished downtown with Maine Cab Masters filming the reveal. All went well. Thanks to the PD for helping out with just a brief traffic control while we did a push-in. They call it the martini shot, I believe is what they call it. Something for the reveal that's kind of like a martini moment, you know, and for us, it was the push-in ceremony. So they wanted to film that. We had to shut down the road just briefly. We're all done. Hopefully it'll be aired next year on the network, season 13, episode 11. That's fingers crossed. I think it's canceled. Now for the public, as a reminder, I said it 2 weeks ago, but I'll say it again. This Saturday, the 7th, will be our public reveal. Gonna be about 45 minutes, maybe an hour at the most. I know we're gonna talk about a little bit about shutting the road down. So if that gets approved, downtown Main Street will be no traffic during that time. We're expecting over 200 people, so it's gonna be quite an event. We're gonna reveal the 9/11 Memorial Park, have a ceremony. We've got Grand Lodge Masons coming down with a nice cornerstone dedication. We'll have the Highlander band there. And we're gonna transition from the ceremony to the grand opening of the firehouse. We'll have everybody give a tour of the downstairs and the upstairs, and we're gonna do a push-in ceremony publicly, but not only engine two, but our hand tub that is on loan from Gardner. So, it'd be kind of a nice thing to photograph. I believe we do have, Channel 13 News coming out, because they filmed the moving of the building, so we invite them to come back and see the final product. And I believe Kennebec Journal's gonna have a reporter there as well, or a photographer. So hopefully you guys can make it. The last thing I got is, we recently added 2 new juniors, Sarah Fournier and Grace Mills, both daughters of current firefighters, so family tradition continues. We're now up to six junior members in our junior program, hoping to add a couple more now that school's back in session. That's all I got for now. I'll have more in 2 weeks. We got a busy thing coming up in October. We got Apple we got fire prevention, we got Halloween, we got all kinds of events coming. So, any questions? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
What time you want us there?
For Saturday?
On Saturday.
Oh, I'm sorry, 9 AM.
Thanks.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Now, when people come.
Yep.
If the street will be closed after they arrive, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so people can just congregate right downtown Main Street, in front of the retaining wall, on the sidewalk, in the street.
Parking.
Even up a little bit on Pleasant Street on the side if you want, parking. Wherever, yeah, up and down Main Street, you could park at the beach parking lot and walk down. Be a good place to park, kind of off the beaten path a little, fire station.
Houston.
Just not in front of the doors.
If Thompson's not busy.
Yeah.
They are Saturday.
I think the library's open, but, you know,
Kristen's got a long parking, long driveway.
but it's under construction.
Oh, is it?
So.
Oh, I won't bother us.
If Jimmy's not working. You can park
It's over the
inside.
bridge, we still go across.
Yeah.
And we will be selling hats and t-shirts for an additional fundraiser, so. Some cash or a checkbook, I'd love to take your money. Accept you. Thank you.
I was there for the final shooting of the event, and, I just wanna say hats off to Dan and his team for, bringing that together and all with
Record time.
record time with no public funding. I mean, you guys would be commended on that. Good job.
Thank you.
All right, August, we handled 318 calls for service in the month of August. If you look on give you 2 sheets, one's a August and one's a year-to-date complaints. In the month of August, we had 1 OUI arrest, an arrest for trafficking scheduled drugs, crystal meth. And that individual ended up getting charged for 2 separate occasions. 1 criminal speed for 62 and a 25 right on Main Street.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's that one car that spikes the
little
sign.
the sign, yeah.
Criminal summons for driving to endanger and a criminal summons for operating with suspended registration. We've replaced all the computers, updated all the computers in the cruisers. They're up and running now. Much appreciated. Much needed. Our old ones weren't doing what they were supposed to do. They weren't connecting with anything, and all the software on them was all outdated and they couldn't update them. Much appreciated that we got those because, like I said, they're definitely needed. I've got the committee all put together for the, just to do the research on whether or not we want to proceed forward with the consolidation of the PDs, and I'll be sending out an email before Friday to schedule our first meeting, so we've got 3 people in this room who are members of that committee, so I look forward to the first meeting and getting this underway. We did have, one high-speed chase. Towards the end of this month, end of August, went down through town. Started with a domestic down in Cumberland County, and Dana intercepted the vehicle on 202 in Monmouth. Case went down Old Lewiston Road into Winthrop. They tried spiking it, and they got around the spikes. Vehicle turned onto 202 by Charlie's and came up back to Monmouth. Hit Main Street 132, headed south on 132 at speeds of upwards of 100 miles an hour. Prior to it getting into the village, Dana backed off to try to get him to slow down going through town. Unfortunately, he didn't. He went through town at about 100 miles an hour. Continued on. They were able, later that afternoon, they were able to apprehend the suspects after a little standoff in Augusta. Peacefully, thankfully. So he's got a multitude of charges coming from our agency. We do have a policy in place that regulates high-speed chasers. That policy was not violated by any of the members of the agency in the pursuit. So I know that there were some concerns, but there's some things we just can't control, and that's how people, idiots, drive sometimes, you know. This guy was wanted on felony warrants. Assaulted his girlfriend in the car down in Cumberland County somewhere, and she called 911, and that's what brought our attention to it, to check the welfare of the occupants of the vehicle, and that's what Dana was attempting to do when the chase started. That's all I have. Any questions, concerns?
Have a request from the residents of Sanborn Road. Could they get that fancy flashing sign out there
We can do that.
for a little bit?
The other side of paving a road, right?
Yes,
Right.
yeah, absolutely.
It's the same thing out on Town Farm or Whippoorwill, whatever you want to call it.
Well, yeah.
Now that
And
it's all nice and smooth, end to end, you can fly. Monmouth then used to be the speed bump.
Oh, it doesn't matter. I mean, the other day I was walking and, you know, I was facing traffic and I was in front of Stevens greenhouses. And I heard something and felt something coming, you know, right next to me, and this guy passed, this big giant truck passed somebody right in front of the greenhouse. So I had a car right next to me where normally I don't, from behind, and it scared the daylights out of me. And of course, it's double yellow line there, and it's 35, but
how dare you walk on a public way?
I don't know. And even Tony's painted crossing stripes and people don't bother to stop. So, you know, it doesn't matter. You just always, it's like high alert out there. So, but if there's at least a 3-foot shoulder where, you know, I try to walk where there's a sidewalk and shoulder, but it's crazy.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Is what board report?
Oh, we've got Justin.
Quick second. So, news from DPW, we have a highly qualified laborer, truck driver person that's coming in. He has more skills than, so we have talked with the union, and we're gonna start him at a higher step so that we can recruit him. He's very capable. He has a lot of experience, and he also has a lot of he's worked for MDOT, and one of his jobs is he was a manager installing the snowplow equipment on the trucks when they bought it. So like he's a fabricator, not a mechanic. You wouldn't say he's not an engine mechanic, but he has a lot of skills working on the trucks that doesn't have to do with the engine components. So he's going to be starting soon, we hope. I'm not going to say his name because we're still working through having him sign the paperwork. We have a new transfer station manager as well. That will be starting shortly. And then while we say all these great things, Sean, our mechanic, is resigning. He's gonna go take over the mechanic shop that he left to come work for us. The owner of the mechanic shop is retiring and offered him the opportunity to run it himself, so he's going to lead and go run his own business, so we wish him well. It'll be a loss for the department, but we're going to advertise that position as a mechanic, because you folks all supported creating that position, so we're going to go out and see if we can find somebody else that will want to do.
So, sorry, is the transfer station person new or just a new title for somebody
It's a
that's
new
there?
person.
Okay,
My understanding is that the kayak rental stand is supposed to be installed this Saturday, I believe. Tony's been working with them on where to put it and how to get it down there. So things
On the morning.
really,
are moving along. Yeah, right. I know, I know about that, but we'll see how that all works out. If there's an issue, we'll work it out. I think that's all I have, unless you have any questions for
Were
me.
you able to get a hold of DOT on the Route 135 sawhorse thing?
I mentioned that to Tony, just yesterday, so no, I don't have an answer for you.
And then there's been a lot of discussion online about the various small paving projects that need to get completed, the Wagon Road patch.
Yeah, so, yes, okay, so that's all, the Wagon Road Patch project it's a FEMA project. That's not the reason why it's delayed, it's just because it's so small.
Yeah.
That we will be lucky if we can get, Tony has, the vendor out there. And they're basically, because it's so small, it's one of these things that like, well, if we have time right before the paving plant closes, we'll come do it. There's just nobody interested in doing that.
Okay, I
That's
have a couple of
more-
referrals for you.
Okay, fine.
I mean, he may have already looked at these people, but they're like
Sure.
driveway people.
Yep, sure. So send him along, but like, it is on his list. He knows about it. It's also one of the things that holds up some of our FEMA money. So if somebody that's qualified to do it, I'm sure he'd be happy to listen, anybody that can get it done.
Okay.
Because, FEMA will pay for those invoices, and it creates a lot of administrative hassle for us to keep the project open because we have to keep filing reports. So I'm sure anybody that he thinks is qualified would be great. So if you have somebody, send me an email and I'll.
This is a new
Forward.
thing. It's like, you need a referral, you just go to Facebook.
Which is fine, but like, as a town, we can't use
I know.
Facebook as an official vehicle. It's just not, it's not a thing.
Are they done with the paving around town?
No,
So
so,
still more to go.
the Wilson Pond Road hasn't been done. The company, which is All States Paving, they did the Town Farm Road. And then they left town. They got called back to do, I think it was either I-95 or the Turnpike. They had a big project, so they left. That's priority, and when they have time, they'll come back and do this.
Wilson Pond.
It's how yeah. It's really a Winthrop contract that we're kind of piggybacking on to do our little small section that's in between where the town line kind of cuts across, and then it's our road for a section, and then it goes back. They're gonna get it done this year, is my understanding. It's just that they can make, obviously paving the turnpike is priority for them, not Wilson Pond Road.
And the manager for Allstate was just hired as a public works.
Director in Winthrop, yeah,
He'll make sure it gets done.
yeah. That's correct. Yes, unless you have it, yeah, unless there's any other questions, I'm good.
Select board reports.
so. Going off of that, I had somebody ask me about Cemetery Road, if it was gonna be graded and whether or not there was gonna be calcium that was going on that, so.
That is not one that I have heard from Tony that's even on the list, but I'm happy
Okay.
to check.
All right, thank you.
Calcium is
I-
gotten very expensive.
I know.
It's $600 a truckload or something. I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
how they
I
measure it.
remember him talking about that, so I mentioned that to the person that asked me that we were doing it pretty limitedly.
We did have one road that was done right, I think he had said, but I couldn't remember because I didn't have those notes in front of me.
Was it just grading or just the calcium?
Well, both.
While you're making notes for Tony.
Yeah.
I did get to witness firsthand the parking issue at the transfer station. Someone had posted a while ago, they really wanted to see the striping done down there for the parking spots. And I was there the other day and it was people just parking in the middle and they don't know. If you haven't been there a lot, you wouldn't know where to park, and it creates kind of a traffic jam. And I know they got a lot to do, but if they want to go play with their new machine, it would be a good place
Yeah.
to practice.
Yeah.
Sure.
And there's certainly a lack of signage down there. You don't, there's no flow. You just kind of drive up to the top and it's a great big.
Yep.
Right, you know, and if there was a drive lane, like go like this and then exit this way, it might help. Yeah, but there's just, it's not set up.
It's a free for all.
Yeah, it's a free for, right.
Even when it's striped, it's kind of a free for all.
Right, yeah. No, but I hear what you're saying.
There was also, I had a conversation with one of the drivers, that transports stuff down there. And we were talking about the demo container. He was under the impression Winthrop actually had a dump trailer that they haul their demo stuff themselves rather than hiring someone.
Yep, that's correct.
And I think it is a significant savings hauling it yourself. And it may be something we want to look into when we start really looking at things at the transfer station. How much per ton, maybe inquire from Winthrop, what do they pay to get rid of their stuff versus what we're paying to get rid of it now?
Yes,
Um,
they have their own tractor truck, which is brand new. I think they just bought it last year, the year before. And they haul all their own stuff. They have an employee. They don't contract that out. They haul it all. It's all in-house over there.
Yep.
Which is one of the things that we briefly touched on when we were talking about consolidating public works directors, was that would have been one of the areas where we
One of the
could have,
perks.
yeah, where we could have saved money with them. So they've hired their own public works director, but Anthony, the town manager over there, is still committed to working with us in any way possible on any type of sharing of resources. So I think the transfer station is probably one of those areas that we may want to have a conversation about, because they do have they have a scale house and all that, so they can manage their intake and what it costs to get it out much better than we can. You know, when you set kind of these flat fees, it's like, you know, but when you have to put it in a truck and someone's got, you know, 1,000 pounds of cinder blocks underneath a mattress and then they haul it out, you know, and no one's looking. Right, you know, there's a
you
lot.
got $15 out of them and.
Right, and it really is a lot more. When
Right.
you drive across the scale, they know, hey, you drove in here with this and you drove out with, where did it go? You know? You know, so yes, I think that's something that we can explore as we move forward. I think now we just kind of have to wait for their new public works director to come in and have Tony and him have a conversation about what we might be able to share, but that is an excellent idea, Mark, because they do haul their own trash.
Another thing, the plumber went to the beach today and drained the water in the beach, in the restrooms and stuff. The issue they had with the lock, I thought there was gonna be locked and not be able to open it, but it is open and can't be locked. He shut the water off this morning, went back later this afternoon to put antifreeze in. Someone had gone in and used the bathroom.
Okay.
So we're gonna have to secure that.
Yeah, it was on my list when he closed them down that we were I'm just gonna replace all of them. You wouldn't imagine after what we went through earlier this spring, the number of keys. There's like buckets of keys that go down to that one building. And there's tons of keys that don't seem to go to anything. There are dozens of keys that go to each door. My plan was just to replace every doorknob and lock down there and chuck all that stuff. And then start having some inventory of where these keys are and who has them. Just like we do with the town, but other than this one here, if you want a key to the town office, like Lori has a list. And she knows who has a key to the front door, you know. We have no idea who has keys to that building down there. It's a free for all.
I know, having installed them, the ones on the public restroom doors are kind of a specialty thing that when you would need to order, because when you flip, it's like a deadbolt. When you flip it from the inside, there's an indicator on the outside. It goes from vacant to occupied.
Okay.
And that's all there was for, I believe that there was the deadbolt that went back and forth, and then it would be,
Okay,
so you can,
so maybe we can have a conversation,
Right.
because you know more about it than I
Yeah.
do. I just know that we got a ring of keys, like there's
Yeah.
like 5 rings of keys that are this big for one building, and I have no idea what all these keys go to or who has them or whatever, so. It definitely needs to be fixed, but with the additional money in the rec budget and not hiring as many lifeguards this summer, there's plenty of money in the rec budget to kind of do this stuff this year. This is kind of the year to do it. So if we all work together, we can figure out. what-
I know at one point it was kind of a party location because someone went in there. I don't know if it was first thing this spring or maybe that's how the lock got dysfunctional, but there was empty beer cans in there, cigarette butts all over the floor. They had kind of used it as a little party shack, I guess, the bathroom down there. So we want to secure it for sure.
Nice place to have a party.
It's a beach. Mark, where were you on Saturday night?
None of these parents have a basement. Their parents never go away. Yeah, on the restroom.
Yeah, I think that's a good plan to. So we face the same thing at Cubston. There were keys all over.
Right,
and
all over
once
the
we
place.
got the dentist figured out the
Right, the electronic,
the digital locks, that is a dream down there now. That is perfect.
right. Yeah.
Have control over that. So,
So we're gonna work on that. We're just kind of wait for the summer to end.
And now that they're done, I may be able to just put something else in there temporary that we can lock, so it's secure.
Yeah.
I probably have a lock set kicking around somewhere, so we can secure it until we get what we need to fix
Yeah,
it.
let's just talk. We can figure it out. Thank you, Mark.
right.
I'm all set, yep.
Any other select board?
We had a meeting of the Trails Committee. And there were 2 things I wanted to bring to you guys on that. One is, we're starting to get our scope involved, to ask a contractor to put together sort of an analysis of trail needs townwide. So, there are 5 or 6 pretty motivated people to sort of ask him to take a look at 3 or 4 different sites and to give us an estimate on what it would cost to put together sort of some planning for those sites, what those sites would need, including the main trail, which is behind the school, RSU2 property for the most part. So there's that. The Trails Committee is also thinking about a survey for November's election. A survey for voters. To get a sense of what people want to do in terms of priorities for trails and destinations and things they'd like to see. And what's the general attitude if we were to, as a select board, authorize golf carts and ATVs on public ways in a limited way? What would, how do townspeople feel about that? We asked the ATV Snowmobile Club to sort of weigh in on their thoughts, and they kind of said, well, we don't want to overstep our bounds. We want to see what the citizens are up for in terms of use of a public way to provide a backbone for other trails in town. So we're working on a draft of a survey that could be handed out during the November election. We've got plenty of time. The funding deadline we're looking at is not until June of next year, so we've got plenty of time as a committee. How'd I do, Dave?
You did good. We just don't want to overstep. We anticipate having to sign 100 people back to the snowmobile trail, and we don't want anything to interfere with that. Getting those people to sign.
Sure.
So
Say 100 people, 100 landowners.
Yeah.
landowners, they have to sign up every year, because we just authorized our snowmobile.
Right.
So we just didn't want to jeopardize it. It's too soon to do the, too soon to break new ground. Put it out there first and see how the people feel, and then we'll either carry on or back away.
We got
Public comment? Next is to consider closing Main Street for the 9/11 memorial dedication on September 7th.
So I have a memo here. I didn't put it in because I sent this out earlier and then amended it. If you'd like me to read the memo from Chief Roy, I'm happy to do so. Or I can just read the streets that he's asking me to. Whatever your preference.
Streets.
Our schedule events include, you wanna? Yeah. I'll just let the chief do it. He's here, so I guess I don't need to read for him, but.
So basically what we're proposing to do is shut down Main Street from Welch all the way to Blue Road. And then in between, shut down Maple Street and Pleasant Street at Gray Mill Road. And we would detour or divert traffic down Welch, down Gray Mill, down 135, up Berry, and vice versa. To just reroute traffic during that 1 hour period that the ceremony will be taking place to make it safe downtown. We might be able to shrink that from Welch to Maple Street and open up Maple Street. I'm concerned about the post office. It's just that first 5 minutes when we start from marching from the Masonic Lodge down to camp. As soon as they march down, I would be fine just bumping whoever's gonna be helping shut down the road. So maybe.
One of the things we could do is for the ceremony of them marching down, is shut Welch off and just, as they march down, have the cruiser follow down and then block it off there.
Perfect. That'd be perfect.
Maple.
And I think that'd be a better flow too for turning on the Gray Mill versus coming, that
Right.
little S turn to come off Welch. My concern, Dana had mentioned there might be a funeral procession that morning. He was gonna look into it. Did he get back to you yet?
No, we haven't heard when it's gonna be.
So that might be the only hitch in the giddy up. And I told Lieutenant that, if need be, that they can't be diverted. I don't think it's that much to ask, but if it is, we will stop our ceremony for the 5 minutes that it takes to just get the procession of vehicles and just ask the crowd to move off to the side, let them go through. So that's an option that Dana knows that.
Yep.
Other than that, I talked to the general store, gave them a heads up so they know, that this is hoping that a crowd might patronize their business and that'll make up for the roads being shut down for a little bit. I think we can open it to local traffic only, like something on Beach Road or something like that. I don't think the crowd's gonna be over that way. But it's just for audio purposes, it'd be much easier. That's safety. We end up with 300 people. We're gonna need to spread out.
I had told Crystal at the post office, the postmistress, so she knew she was gonna prepare her drivers to vote,
Oh, yeah.
where.
Yeah.
'Cause-
Well, they can still go to and from.
Yes, but that they
At 5
wouldn't be
minutes.
able to use Main Street to get to Pleasant, that they'd have to go down Maple and over, so. That was the only thing that she wanted to prepare her drivers, because they're usually out that early.
I'm so excited about this that first she'd probably just rather be out there with us.
Well, but she was glad to know the day that she'd be able to tell her drivers that they'd have to, be not using Main Street for an hour, so.
That's it. For your blessing and
I make a motion, we approve the closing of Main Street for the 9/11 memorial dedication on this Saturday, September 7th.
That was a motion by Chris, second by Kent to close Main Street for the 9/11 memorial dedication this weekend. All those in favor? And next is to consider and set the property tax rate for the tax year beginning April 1st, 2025.
We worked on this early this week. It's basically, your role in this really is to just decide what the overlay is, which is the amount. There's two separate forms. Don't worry about that. It says 2023 at the top. Since I left the, Service of Maine Revenue Services, they won't provide a tax rate calculator form for you to use anymore. I don't understand why, but they won't. So you have to use one from years past. It's the same, just math. It's not that complicated, but anyway. So it's 70, the first one that you see there is a tax rate of 20.5, and that results in an overlay of $72,688. The other one is $20.45, which results in an overlay of $47,941. Those are your choices.
Our current mill rate.
Is about 1810. Is 1810. The other things to notice on this would be that revenues, municipal revenue sharing is down. It has to do with Rev 2. We have our mill rate that's over 11. And they reduced the Rev 2 contributions, which is, it's generally considered for service center communities, but they haven't updated that formula in a long time. The legislature hasn't. It used to be, 11 or 12 was a high mill rate. And now many municipalities are up in the 20 range. So that Rev 2 used to be specific to communities that had high mill rates. It was designed to be for like the Augustas, the South Portlands, the Lewistons and Auburns of the world, but it's crept into everything. And this year, because of the mill rates that are creeping up all over the state, our Rev 2 distribution went down. So our revenue sharing actually dropped by about $50,000 from last year to this year. The other thing to note is that our ratio is falling, which is the reason that we're doing a revaluation. So when you look at your homestead exemption last year, I think it was 22,500. It's going to be 18,500 this year because we're down to about 79%. So that also affects the calculation of the personal property revenue that we have at the top. If you look at the top of the sheet, it says personal property revenue. That drops because that includes Betty reimbursement from the state. That is ratioed by that 79%. So instead of getting the 90% we got last year, we get 79% of the tax loss on that. And it also impacts the TIF. So when you go down to the TIF, last year we had about 120 some odd thousand, and now the TIF revenue is down to 106,000. That's also impacted by the ratio. So as the ratio falls, some of these categories fall with it, which has an impact on all the taxpayers. So it is important that we get the revaluation done.
What will the ratio be when the revaluation is?
100%. So so like your homestead exemption will go from 18.5 back to 25,000. You'll get the full 100% reimbursement for Betty, which is the personal property number. And and you would expect the TIF financing plan is a little complicated, and I won't get into all the machinations of that, but you would expect that number to go back up more than 106,000.
Could you, when you have a moment, not anything you need to hear or urgently, but when you have a moment, could you do the calculation of what that means when we go from 79%, when we go through the revaluation process, and we go from 79% to 100%? Could you give us an idea of what that means in terms of revenue for the town?
No. Because I will not know until the revaluation is done. It depends on how all those numbers fall out. So there's personal property, there's residential property, there's commercial property in town, And until we know what those, how all those balance against each other when the revaluation is done, I have absolutely no idea. There's
But
no way for me.
in the, what I heard you say is that there is a penalty that we're paying now because of the 79%
Correct.
ratio.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to know what that penalty is in comparison to 100%.
I could only tell you what it is based on the values that we have today, which will be irrelevant once the revaluation is completed. Like
That
completely
would be
irrelevant.
super helpful. I mean, because the rationale behind doing the revaluation is we know that we're paying a penalty. And so can you give us a ballpark of what that penalty is, right? I mean, we're expending $200,000.
I can give you a number, but I would not want you to repeat it anywhere because it will be completely factually inaccurate once the reval is done. There's no way to compare apples to apples with that. None. So if I give you a number and you go out and say that it's gonna be 150,000, it could be 350,000, or it could be 75.
Right.
It completely depends on what the reval shows, what the values are across the spectrum of property
Yeah,
types.
different categories. I understand.
Right, so there really is no way to tell you. I can certainly do that comparison after it's done. Like I can certainly compare it to, once the reval is done and you accept it and we have all the abatements and appeals and all that, and it all flushes out, I could tell you what it was that we're getting now versus what we were getting before. And I know you see this in the newspapers a lot, where towns say, it's X, Y, Z loss, whatever. They're making that up. There's no way to calculate it. So I can tell you what it would be if we took a snapshot as of this commitment right here, April 1. I could tell you what it would be if we were at 100% with the values we have today. I could give you that if you want. I can do that. That's not a problem. I can't tell you what it will be.
Of course.
When I take, X property and move it to 100% across the town, because I have no idea what that's gonna be. I don't know what categories are gonna be, is the waterfront gonna increase by 60%? Are certain streets gonna increase by 40? I have no idea what that is, and when you plug all that into this, there's no way to compute it, like I'd just be making stuff up.
Right.
But I can give you it, right, if we use the values we had today
Hypothetically,
and we went to 100, I can do that.
yeah,
If that,
I think that's.
I just want to make it clear, that's
Well,
all.
and what this
Not trying to
goes
argue
to is sort of the rationale for why we're doing the revaluation.
Yeah, sure.
Right, so people need to.
It can start anytime now. I don't know if the first batch of cards have gone out, but they are contracted and they're supposed to have values for us for April 1, 2025, which means that they're supposed to be done sometime next summer.
I think leading up to that, we really need to look at what's going on in the code enforcement department with Andy. I know he's there writing permits, but there seems to be still some kind of disconnect between him and Donna. And a lot of things that are going on in town, people decide, hey, I'm gonna put a little addition on the back of my house, nobody's gonna know. When Dave would see someone building something, would stop and say, what are you doing? I don't remember writing a permit for this, but we don't have that now. So unless we're gonna do a reevaluation every 3 or 4 years, we're gonna be, 2-3 years after we do a reevaluation, we're gonna be right back in the same boat we're in now, where there's been all kinds of stuff done and we don't know when we're not collecting the tax revenue from it. And I know we're kind of stuck in Andy is only working so many hours and that's all he'll commit to, and it's hard to find someone full-time, but somewhere in there, we're gonna need to make some provisions to get this stuff on track and make sure that we don't fall behind 6 months after the reevaluation is done, which I'm afraid, the way things are right now, that's exactly what's gonna happen.
Well, and I appreciate I appreciate your sentiment. I just want to make clear that like people, when they add small additions or decks or sheds into their backyard, they commit almost nothing at the tax rate. Like a shed in your backyard, it may cost you $6,000 to build, right? It's not $6,000 worth of taxable value. It might be $1,000. So if our tax rate is $20, That's $20 that you're missing. So you need an awful lot of sheds to have it impact the tax rate. I don't think that there are entire houses going up in town that nobody knows about. I don't think there are that many full garages or second stories that are being built that nobody's seeing. And if they are going up, most of the time the neighbor will rat on them anyway. But if they don't, I do know what you're saying. There is a loss there, but codes only control so much of that. Most of the value that leads to revaluations is really market changes. It's the fact that we had COVID and everybody moved in here and they drove the housing stock in Maine, they doubled it. They took small camps that nobody would have paid $500,000 for 5 years ago, and they were buying them for $500,000 at a whack, and it hasn't stopped since then. Like they've resold, people were, oh, it's just a fad. It's not. It's the fact of life now. They are, and I'm not just trying to say this as the Monmouth town manager. I also, my family owns an assessing business on the side. We do revaluations in small communities. We're doing them in Reedfield, Woolwich, Chebeague Island. This is happening everywhere. Everybody's everybody's values are doubling. And everybody that's here today or whatever, when the reval is done here, if you own a decent home in this community, I would almost expect your value to pretty much close to double. And I shouldn't say that out loud, but it's true. But the fact is if the town doesn't spend any more money, the mill rate will go from 20 to 10. So it doesn't necessarily mean your taxes are gonna go up unless we spend more. But the values will significantly increase. I mean, you can just look around, it's happening everywhere. Everybody can read in the paper, so I don't think I'm not really trying to shock anybody. If you read online what's going on in every other community around our whole area, this is happening everywhere. It shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. And if you look at the value on your property record card, if you think that your house, would you sell your house for what's on that property record card right now? So, that's, the idea is so that the values are where you would sell it for if you contacted a broker and said, without selling it to family or, all that kind of stuff. If it's an arm length sale, the goal of a reval is to get it to where it would sell on an open market between two buyers, a buyer and a seller that have no connection to each other. So that's the goal of the reval, is that everything's at 100%. But I would suspect that we will be nowhere near a 20 mill rate when I'm saying 20 because that's what you guys are looking at tonight, but it will be nowhere near that when the reval's done, because a tax rate is just math. It's value, divided by the amount of money that you need to raise, and that's the number that comes out. So if the value doubles, the mill rate gets cut in half. That's just. But I do know what you're saying is that when we're in a position where we don't have code enforcement that has a ton of time to drive around and find things, or that just doesn't have the knowledge of the community, all that stuff it gets missed because they just don't, they're not driving around. When you have somebody that is here all the time, they're driving around, they're going to do a permit over on XYZ road, and they go, that shed wasn't there last week. Andy has no idea whether that shed, right? So I do understand, or a deck, or or it looks like they built living quarters over their garage. Like he's never gonna know that driving around. He's not here enough. So. Yeah, so I totally understand what you're saying. Like I'm not saying there's no validity to what you're saying. I'm just saying that it's a we don't have anybody that will do that work.
Well, nobody does really anymore, in small towns like ours, code enforcement is not something that.
Well, even like Winthrop has a full-time code officer, and they need 1.5.
Yeah.
Because we have a ton of waterfront in this community, but Winthrop has twice the waterfront. They have more waterfront per square mile than I think any community in the state, to be honest. I think it's, or at least inland. I don't know if that's true about oceanfront, but of any inland community, they have more waterfront feet.
They're 25% more waterfront than we do.
Okay, yeah, you know. And it's just, everything is planning board. It's all shoreland zone. Everything is shoreland zone. And he doesn't even have the ability to deal with that stuff. And he's full-time over there. And they're looking at going to 1.5 because they don't have anybody to deal with the nuisance stuff, you know, like when somebody calls about their neighbors put a shed too close to, he can't even deal with that, like. So, anyway, I'm sorry I talked too much.
Can you refresh our memories on what the overlay, the significance of the overlay? That's our decision tonight, whether we do a 20.25 overlay or a 20.45 overlay. What's the difference and what's the overlay?
It's just the amount of money that you're comfortable with. In the last several years, you've been around that $40,000 mark. That's been kind of the last 2, 3, 4 years, I think you've been around that range. That's been what you're comfortable with. The overlay is kind of a roundabout way. Technically speaking, it's not used to fund abatements. It's always said that, but without a warrant article that says that we can take it out of the overlay, it doesn't. But what it does is it protects the town from the abatements that come in. So if someone were to file an abatement, which you have them every year, and it just depends what's gonna happen. That money comes out of the revenue side of the property tax. So when you commit a property tax, the town assumes under accounting standards that all that money is collected the second that you commit. So tomorrow morning, after you sign this thing, the deputy tax collector is gonna feed this all into the accounting system. It's gonna say, we just received $12 million. Because we have to pay that at the school, the county, all that stuff. The overlay is supposed to protect the town from all the abatements that might come in or any shortfalls in revenue that come in after the fact. In a roundabout way with the abatements, the reason I say that is because as you grant abatements, you are just removing money out of the revenue line. So you're making the town go into the red every time that you do that. It's obviously the right thing to do in all the cases that you abate them, but it moves the town into the red. The overlay is the process in which you're basically setting money, you're basically raising a little more money than what you need to pay all of the bills. So that when all those things happen, that money will fall back into the undesignated fund balance to make the town whole. If you're looking at these calculations in here, the town is technically allowed to raise up to 5% of the amount that you commit into the overlay. The maximum overlay that's allowed under law is $508,000. So the other side of the overlay is it's also used by elected officials to build fund balance in some cases. So if like a town gets in itself into financial trouble, you might choose that you're gonna say, well, we're gonna raise 300,000 and put it back into the fund balance so we have more money in our piggy bank because something went horribly wrong somewhere. But we're not in that position. So I think a much smaller overlay amount is warranted. I think that if you're looking to the future to try to build the fund balance, then I would say that the 72,000 is appropriate. But if you're comfortable with the cash reserves we have, then I think the 40-something thousand is perfectly fine. Which seems to be kind of the history here over the last few years. We're not in jeopardy of having cash flow issues or anything. So, I mean, I think the 40,000 is perfectly fine. It sets the mill rate a little lower for the taxpayers. And that's what you want to do.
That's what I would prefer. It seems to me like we're already kind of baked in a pretty significant jump for taxpayers. So if we can take a more modest overlay, that will help soften some of the blow. And also keep in mind that senior citizens, or many of our senior citizens that previously had their property taxes frozen, are now going to be unfrozen.
Correct.
And so there are going to be some people who get a double whammy in terms of property tax because the legislature changed the law regarding the freezing of senior citizen property taxes.
Right.
So I would make a motion that we go with the budget plan that includes a $47,941.16 overlay. which will result in if I heard you right, a 20.25. No rate, that's 0.45. 4.5. So the lower overlay gets a higher mill rate?
No, the higher overlay is 20.5.
So 20.5, I didn't hear right.
I will second that motion.
Any further discussion? Needed here. So Ken made a motion, Mark seconded it to go with the lesser overlay amount. And set the tax rate based on that.
Well said.
All those in favor?
Hold on, I'm gonna give you, every place that it says assessors on here is where you need to sign. You need to sign all, there's both. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Replace those 5 lines.
There's 4, yes, there's 4 places which you need to sign on that.
Looks like Dave has a question.
Justin, do you
Yes.
remember what the bill rate was 2 years ago, which is what I was paying?
2 years ago, well, this
So it was
won't be helpful for you, Dave, but I'll tell you.
Tell me.
So 2 years ago, it was 19.5.
Okay. It went down last year.
Right, and Donna factored the town up, so she increased your value by 15%. So the
Right.
mill rate dropped, I think, to 18.10.
Right.
And then now it's going up to 20.
Well, I'm just paying what Donna increased last year and what
Well, not necessarily what she increased, but it's just that the mill rates don't,
was.
it doesn't make sense if you look at, it's not
Yeah,
like
we need
it's
to
not a
do
straight
that.
line.
So there was a statistical valuation.
You're done, okay.
Last
This
year.
one we needed to.
She was trying to hold the homesteads at that 22,500. She,
It worked for a year.
she
It
didn't,
worked for a year.
she could have done it again this year, but the fact that we're doing a reval this year going into next. He just kind of thought that it wasn't, it didn't make sense because if you just factor the whole town up. You also increase the disparity between the ones that are wrong, right? So if you have 2 equal houses and one's now 5% higher than another one and they're exactly the same because you haven't done a reval in 15 years and then you factor it by 15, you go like this.
Right.
You make the disparity worse.
Compound.
And since it's supposedly gonna get fixed. For next year, she just chose not to do it again. Technically, you chose not to do it because she doesn't do anything. She gives you recommendations and you decide what to do. But for all intents and purposes, that was her rationale behind the idea.
So we're on to warrant number 5, this is the year 24-25.
First one is Capital One Public Funding, $107,496.05. Those are the fire trucks. Maine Equalization Consultants, the assessing agent, $2,437. Maine Municipal Association Property and Casualty Insurance, $28,232. Maine Municipal Association Unemployment Insurance, $1,642. Marquee signs, $2,705. Those are for the gateway signs. Down. Permaline, $6,100. That was the paint machine purchased by Public Works. Randy's Auto, $1,700. F-250 repairs, the Public Works Department. Rinaldi Energy, $5,884. Diesel. RSU number 2, $549,308. Sherwin-Williams. Paint for the paint machine, $4,587. State of Maine Bureau of Motor Vehicles, $3,973. For a total of $723,951.76.
Make a motion, we approve warrant number 5 for fiscal year 24-25.
Second that.
There's a motion by Ken, second by Chris to approve warrant number 5 for fiscal year 24-25. All those in favor?
I think that paint is very expensive.
It only cost 6,000, and they got $4,000 worth of paint. I hope that's like a year's supply.
You're gonna send us the images of those signs,
Which-
the entryway signs, the gateway signs. You were gonna email.
Oh, I'm
us the-
sorry. I did say I would send that, didn't I?
Yes.
I
And
apologize.
then when I saw the signs on there, I just never sent them.
Nope,
So I'm
that's on
like-
my, I'm sorry. I didn't write it
Yeah.
down, so I didn't do it.
So is there some sort of an enforcement action pending in the district court?
What are you referring to?
Maybe
Uh,
somebody
Anderson
running
Road.
sewer.
Oh, yeah, so she's been summoned by it, and I believe it's sometimes, it came in much quicker. I believe it's sometime next week or the week after that she has a court date. But no, nothing has happened since. I was surprised how quickly they reacted to it. I thought it would be months.
The issue is a wastewater issue?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
But no, I haven't heard anything since. I haven't even heard if she was served. I think it's the sheriff's department, so it's not you guys anyway, so I haven't heard anything back, yeah.
It's just within the shoreline zone, is that why it's?
No. No, just it's a home that does not have running water or a waste disposal system. There are people living in it, it's violation of state building code, and she's had, Andy's been trying to work with her for more than, let's say, probably 18, actually, I think Richard was dealing with her before. Been a long time, and she just does not want to cooperate or even give us any indication that she's going to cooperate. We've just gotten to the point where we don't have anything else to do other than to just
Put it in the hands of the courts.
yeah, we have to do something, yeah. And we've tried to work with her, so it's not meant to be punitive, we just can't, she will not respond to any inquiries.
I guess from what I hear, it's really nasty. I mean, a nasty situation. People can live like this. But it didn't sound very pleasant.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Who's the hell?
What did you, how did you